Caitlin Clark, making her fourth All-Star appearance.
Was it a wisecrack that backfired, or a strategic flex, reminding everyone who holds the leash? The internet detonated. Storylines flipped upside down. The WNBA, usually so cautious with its image, stood paralyzed as a superstar rewrote the manual live on air. This goes beyond gossip. This is chess. This is dominance. And we are just watching the opening gambit. Enter Plum's sucker punch. The Clark dynasty. Let's rewind to Indianapolis, July 2025. All-Star Weekend was billed as the ultimate showcase of the sport. Everyone was primed for the grand finale of a weekend-long hoops festival. Gainbridge Fieldhouse was bursting at the seams, stuffed with nearly 17,000 roaring fanatics. The atmosphere crackled with static, and the icons of the league were assembled to dazzle the crowd. Yet, beneath the glitter and slow-motion replays, a storm was brewing that would hijack the news cycle for weeks. Before tip-off, the roster had organized a heavy-hitting message. Every player donned black tees screaming, "Pay us what you owe us," during the shoot-around. Make no mistake, this was a protest, not fashion. With the collective bargaining agreement expiring in October, the athletes were drawing a line in the sand for financial equity. As the labor deal ticked toward its death, anxiety and friction were redlining. Right now, the women see about 9% of the revenue pie, a pathetic slice compared to the 50% the NBA guys take home. Countless stars are forced to grind in foreign leagues all winter just to pay the bills. The statement was sharp, united, and vital. Then Kelsey Plum grabbed the mic and the script went up in flames. Plum, holding it down as a Los Angeles Sparks guard and the VP of the Players Association. Kelsey Plum joining the Sparks roster. Marking a historic trade, she headed to Los Angeles alongside the 9th overall draft selection. The scene? A post-game presser seated right beside New York Liberty phenom Sabrina Ionescu. Lenses focused, mics hot, and reporters eager, Plum chose that moment to drop a comment absolutely no one requested. While explaining the United Front Tea protest, she noted the plan was hatched during a morning meeting. Then came the zinger. And not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that. Not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that. Laughter. The air left the room instantly. Sabrina, perched beside her, couldn't mask her shock. An eye roll followed by a sarcastic retort that really needed to be mentioned. We had a very, that really needed to be mentioned. You could practically read the awkwardness tattooed on Ionescu's forehead. She understood precisely the grenade Plum had just lobbed, and it was ugly. A powerful display of solidarity for fair pay was instantly derailed by what looked like a cheap shot at the face of the league. The absolute luminaries of the sport. Caitlin Clark battling the elite, except Clark wasn't even in the building that day. Here is the crucial nuance. Clark missed that meeting and the All-Star game because she was rehabbing a groin injury. She had been fighting this physical setback since the middle of July and was resting at home to heal up. Caitlin Clark is out for tonight's Fever game against the Sparks due to a groin problem. Suggesting she was shirking her activist duties or abandoning her peers wasn't merely incorrect, it was a slap in the face. Clark single-handedly brought a tidal wave of eyeballs to the WNBA. Since she stepped on the court, TV numbers have gone stratospheric. Jerseys are flying off racks. Ticket costs are punching through the roof. Expansion fees leaped from $50 million to $250 million in a blink. She is the literal reason they have leverage. And here comes Clark. That is the trademark Clark package. Incredible tempo and laser-guided distribution finds Boston flawlessly. But there stood Plum on the global stage, insinuating Clark and her crew didn't give a damn. The response was immediate and savage. The internet caught fire. Commenters branded Plum envious, small-minded, and unable to see the big picture. Pundits jumped in, with Colin Cowherd torching Plum for sniping at the very icon who upgraded the league from coach class to private charters. The numbers don't lie, they scream the truth. Ever since Clark stepped onto the hardwood, viewership has gone through the roof, and merchandise is selling out faster than they can restock it. Ticket prices have skyrocketed, and the league just released data confirming this is officially the most watched season in WNBA history. The cost to buy into the league didn't just jump, it exploded. rocketing from $50 million to a staggering $250 million practically overnight. She is literally the golden ticket for every player's future paycheck, yet Plum decided it was a good idea to publicly take shots at the most valuable asset the WNBA possesses. But Clark played the long game. While the noise grew louder, Caitlin Clark didn't make a peep. She didn't fire off a tweet, didn't release a press statement, and offered absolutely zero words to defend herself. The whole internet was setting itself on fire, defending her, with endless articles dissecting the jealousy of veterans, but Clark just kept working, letting the chaos swirl around her while maintaining a deafening, strategic silence. Don't mistake that quiet for weakness. It was a masterclass in leverage and calculated power. Clark grasped a concept that seemed to escape often. The most devastating response is giving them absolutely nothing. You let your dominance and your numbers speak for you, waiting in the tall grass until the stars align and the opening is flawless before you finally take your shot. We aren't playing checkers here. This is high-stakes grandmaster chess. Clark was already 3 turns ahead of the competition, while the rest of the world was still trying to figure out the rules, showcasing the vision of a generational talent. Her fan base went to war in the comment sections, pundits analyzed every syllable of Plum's remarks, and the social media machine churned out endless waves of fury. Meanwhile, the rookie kept her eyes locked on the prize, recovering, prepping for the next game, and meticulously constructing her legacy one brick at a time. Jumping into the mud immediately would have just made her look rattled. It would have given credence to the criticism and turned up the volume on Plum's comments. So she held her fire, letting the public backlash do the heavy lifting and watching as major hosts like Colin Cowherd roasted Plum on national television. The online community ruthlessly dismantled the logic behind attacking the very person bringing millions of eyeballs to the sport. That viral clip of Sabrina Ionescu rolling her eyes became the defining symbol of the drama, and then, exactly when the timing was perfect, Clark finally made her move. It happened barely 24 hours later when Kelsey Plum dropped a post on Instagram to celebrate the All-Star festivities with a generic caption, "What a weekend." The post featured a carousel of photos showing her beaming alongside her squad at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. However, Clark spotted a detail that Plum completely missed, a gigantic Nike swoosh looming in the background, which is awkward considering Plum is not a Nike athlete. She jumped ship to Under Armour back in 2022 to launch her own signature kicks, while Clark is the crown jewel of the Nike roster, sitting on a massive multi-million-dollar contract. The Wall Street Journal had already broken the news that the Hoops phenomenon was locking down a Nike deal worth $28 million, and there was no way she was going to let that branding slip-up slide. She dropped a response that was just 6 words long. Thank you for the Nike ad. No screaming caps, no silly emojis, and no anger, just a surgical, beautifully timed jab delivered with the effortless swagger of a woman who knows exactly how much weight she carries. The digital world absolutely lost its mind, with screenshots taking over every timeline instantly, as fans debated whether it was supreme pettiness or absolute genius. Every sports blog and podcast host immediately started breaking down the interaction from every conceivable angle. With that tiny sentence, Clark reasserted her dominance, flexed her brand power, and proved she understands the business of basketball in a way Plum, despite her veteran status, completely missed. The genius of the move was how layered it truly was. On the face of it, it looked like a playful joke, but underneath, it was a cold, strategic reminder that Clark is the undisputed marketing queen of the league. This is Caitlin Clark. We are talking about one of the most electric talents the country has ever seen. Plum accidentally teed up the ball, and Clark smashed it out of the park with a response that was surgical, intelligent, and just cheeky enough to work. It wasn't a personal attack, but it was devastating all the same. Clark didn't have to rattle off her stats, the TV ratings, or the revenue she generates. Those 6 words said it all, and Plum went completely dark. No snappy comeback, no explanation, and zero defense. Weeks rolled by, and the story continued to simmer while the internet analyzed every single nuance of the exchange. Plum realized she had been totally outmaneuvered, and saying anything else would have just made the situation look 10 times worse. In that fleeting moment, Caitlin Clark showed the entire world exactly who holds the keys to the kingdom in women's basketball. She didn't do it with a long speech or a press conference rant. She did it with impeccable timing and undeniable presence, proving she is far more than just a baller. She is a walking masterclass in leverage, proving that ruling the WNBA isn't just about how many points or assists you rack up on the stat sheet. It is about owning the moment, reading the energy of the room, and knowing the exact second to pull the trigger. And just as critically, knowing when to keep your mouth shut. With a simple 6-word sentence, Clark demonstrated that the future of this league is about more than just a jump shot. It requires intellect, composure, and an iron grip on both the game and the culture that surrounds it. Caitlin Clark didn't merely reply. She taught everyone a lesson that in this new era, power is something you take, timing is the only thing that matters, and silence often screams louder than words ever could. The gravity of a single supernova. It took until mid-August, almost 4 full weeks of radio silence before Plum finally stepped up to the mic. She chose friendly territory, hopping onto Sue Bird's podcast, asterisk, a touch more, asterisk, to hit the rewind button in a classic PR cleanup operation. Look, I cracked a terrible joke, Plum confessed. A seriously awful joke. Just a flat-out whiff. Yeah, I totally bombed that one. Rough stuff. My mindset was basically, hey, look, Team Clark missed the meeting too. Just trying to diffuse the tension, you know? I was teasing that they were nursing hangovers. Ironic, since we go by the nickname The Hangovers. I just meant, hey, at least we showed up. She pivoted quickly, insisting her biggest regret was letting a soundbite overshadow the actual war they're fighting. Fair pay in the next collective bargaining agreement. She doubled down on the idea of solidarity, claiming the roster was a united front, everyone sporting the gear, and swore she never intended to spark another Clark against the old guard headline. But let's be real, this drama unveiled something way deeper than 2 hoopers throwing shade on the timeline. It ripped the cover off the messy, high-stakes friction bubbling under the surface of the W. You have a league rocketing into the stratosphere on the back of one rookie's alien fame, while vets who toiled in the shadows for a decade watch the ground quake under their sneakers. And don't get it twisted, this explosion is genuine and game-changing. Pre-Clark, the association was fighting for eyeballs, with primetime slots registering barely a blip on the radar. Stadiums echoed with empty seats. The press barely showed up. They were bleeding roughly $40 million a year. World-class talent wasn't enough to stop the bleeding until number 22 arrived and flipped the script instantly. Viewership didn't just tick up. It doubled, tripled, sometimes even hit 4 times the usual figures. Every time the Fever took the court, it was appointment television. Her jerseys vanished from racks faster than factories could stitch them. Box office prices went vertical. When the Clark Circus rolled into your city, you were looking at over $2 million in gate receipts. That smashed every record in the books. Out of nowhere, casuals who couldn't name a single team were glued to the screen, desperate to witness the phenomenon firsthand. Franchise price tags ballooned to $250 million as suits finally smelled green in the league's 28-year existence. For established killers like Plum, a back-to-back champ with the Aces who's paid her dues in sweat equity, this sudden pivot must sting. Plum is a certified bucket getter, dropping 20 a night and proving she's elite. We're talking about a former top draft pick who's been an absolute fixture at the All-Star game 4 times over, not to mention donning the red, white, and blue on the Olympic stage. She built her legacy brick by brick with relentless grind. Yet, for all that hardware, she never got the magazine covers or the massive paydays that Clark summoned the second she turned pro. But you can't pin that on the rookie. That is the brutal math of charisma, timing, and brand appeal. A few rare athletes just outgrow the game and become icons. Clark is that unicorn. And while you can't blame the vets for feeling salty about a fresh face walking in and stealing the spotlight and the bag, you can't hate on the rainmaker who's finally watering the whole crop. Because here is the cold, hard fact some folks don't want to say out loud. When Clark wins, the entire ecosystem wins. Every rating point she grabs boosts the leverage for the next media contract. Every jersey she moves pumps cash directly into the league's veins. The brighter the spotlight she shines on the court, the more young hoopers will. Dream of the pros, building a fiercer, deeper roster of talent for the next generation. She isn't robbing the vets of their slice. She's baking a bigger pie that simply wasn't there before. From the starters to the bench, everyone eats better because she's here, like it or not. Higher salary caps, charter flights, top-tier gyms, that stuff happens because the business is finally in the black, something that was a pipe dream until now. And a huge chunk of that revolution tracks straight back to the Clark effect. The league desperately needs her. It also needs Plum, Ionescu, Wilson, Stewart, and every other baller making the game beautiful. The end game only works if the whole squad realizes they are infinitely more powerful. It is about realizing that the massive spotlight Clark commands illuminates the entire stage for everybody, and that solidarity at the bargaining table is worth infinitely more than bruised pride. The rallying cry to demand fair market value was both electric and absolutely vital for the survival of the sport. These athletes have earned every single penny, along with first-class travel, professional facilities, and a much larger slice of the financial pie they are baking. However, that crystal-clear mission starts to lose its focus and impact. The moment you start publicly dragging the league's golden goose for skipping a meeting while she is nursing an injury. Now, look at how Caitlin Clark navigates this minefield. She walks the tightrope with the poise of a seasoned veteran. She constantly tips her hat to the icons who bulldoze the road she now walks on, showing nothing but deference. In Indiana, she is the ultimate teammate, dishing out assists, hyping up the squad, and never letting the blinding lights obscure the collective goal. She wields her massive influence to shine a light on the entire women's basketball landscape, not just to boost her own brand. When the haters come knocking or the shade gets thrown, she doesn't rage. She hits back with dead silence or a wink of dry wit. That is the signature of a visionary who knows her legacy is tied to the survival and flourishing of the whole garden, not just her own flower. Her victory is the league's victory. She takes the hit when the organization looks fractured, petty, or childish. Consequently, she chooses the high road, lifting the game up even when she has every right to unleash a verbal smackdown. That 6-word Nike quip, that was the art of cool personified. Yet even that jab was more cheeky and playful than it was malicious. It was a sort of viral moment that sparks conversation across the internet without burning down relationships. It was a gentle reminder of who moves the needle, without having to scream that she is the queen bee, Caitlin Clark. I mean, who is really running the show? Do you honestly believe you are the undisputed titan of women's college basketball at this very moment? It screams self-belief minus the toxic ego, a total slam dunk in terms of optics. And it shut down the drama instantly because it was so surgically precise that any clapback from Plum would have reeked of desperation. We are talking about a doctorate-level lesson in public relations, the sort of maneuver that makes you forget she is a rookie with only one season under her belt. She operates with the swagger of an icon who has been dodging paparazzi and managing headlines 30 years, when the truth is, she is learning to swim in these shark-infested waters right before our eyes. Peering into the crystal ball, the friction between Clark and Kelsey Plum is shaping up to be the WNBA's most gripping soap opera. Kelsey exploded on the court, leading her squad to absolutely dismantle Clark's crew in a massive statement win. Will this transform into a legendary feud built on ironclad respect, the type that pushes the game to new heights and keeps viewers addicted? Or are we destined for more of this uncomfortable, passive-aggressive tension that has defined their dynamic so far? How this story ends rests entirely on the narrative these two decide to write together in the coming years. If Plum can bury whatever bitterness is lingering and view Clark as a powerful fellow soldier, instead of an enemy at the gates, we could see a powerful alliance where two elite sharpshooters drive each other to greatness. If Clark keeps deflecting the hate with class and laughter while letting her game do the talking, she will convert even the diehard doubters who want to see her stumble. And if they can both keep their eyes locked on the hardwood instead of Twitter wars or press conference drama, the sport itself strikes gold. Every time the Indiana Fever and the Los Angeles Sparks collide, it is going to be appointment television. Kelsey Plum is staring down the barrel of two massive all-stars standing directly in her path. Spectators will be hanging on every possession, hunting for signs of bad blood when these titans clash. Will Plum lock Clark up with that suffocating playoff intensity defense we saw during the All-Star break? Will Clark try to drop 50 points on Plum's head just to send a message, or will they both keep it strictly business, treating it like another day at the office while the press hunts for a feud that might not actually exist? Reality check. Both of these women are too brilliant and too hungry for rings to let this sideshow tank their year. Clark is on a mission to drag Indiana into the postseason and silence the critics who think she is just a flash in the pan. Plum is grinding to turn the Sparks into a dynasty again after her departure from Las Vegas. Neither one has the luxury of letting bruised egos or personal feelings derail the mission. The reason we cannot look away is that we are watching a seismic generational passing of the torch live on air. The veterans are being asked to scoot over for a rookie who kicked down the door with more hype, cash, and cameras than the game has ever seen. It is awkward, sure, but let us be honest that tension creates some serious sparks. Yet, that very heat offers a massive stage for the league to evolve and for the athletes to shine. Play this right, and we are looking at the birth of a vendetta for the history books. Think Larry Legend against Magic, his airness taking on the entire league, or King James battling the world. Was the Magic Johnson and Larry Bird saga truly the gold standard for on-court warfare? The Clark and Plum showdown has all the ingredients to become the defining conflict of this entire women's basketball generation. It is the type of fierce competition that demands perfection from both sides, feeding the fans a gripping saga to obsess over, season after season. Alternatively, the whole thing could smoke and vanish, reduced to a fleeting blip of internet gossip that felt momentous but faded into obscurity. The ultimate destiny of this feud depends entirely on what unfolds in the coming days and how these two superstars decide to author the upcoming pages of this drama. A mere 6 words shifted the entire paradigm, leaving us to wonder if the WNBA is ready for a reality where a single player dictates the narrative and reshapes influence on the fly. Caitlin Clark is doing far more than simply competing on the hardwood. She is overhauling the blueprint of the sport itself. If this is merely the opening act, one shudders to imagine the intensity of the sequel. Who will crumble and who will ascend in this blinding new glare? The saga is just heating up, and the landscape of the game has been altered forever.